But the evidence they seek hides in Everest's hazardous death zone. Killer winds rip at them. Temperatures plunge to 40 below. Air so thin, even elite climbers gasp for breath. Then, a shocking twist. Low on oxygen and out of time, their investigation unexpectedly turns into a rescue mission. On this expedition to the edge. On Mount Everest, the tallest and most legendary mountain on Earth, the investigation team narrows its search for a lost hero. They comb the treacherous death zone, above 25,000 feet, nearly 5 miles high. What they find may rewrite climbing history.
George Mallory. Oh my God! Oh my God!
In 1953, the world celebrated Sir Edmund Hillary's conquest of Mount Everest with his partner, Tenzing Norgay.
We kept constant watch on our oxygen supply and the usage, and even when we were on top, we were very worried as to whether we had enough to get down again.
History tells us he was the first to summit, but doubts remain. The mystery really begins almost 30 years earlier. The most celebrated climber of his time launches his own expedition for the summit. George Mallory, an irreverent English rebel, thumbed his nose at social convention. Where others took their boots off to wade a freezing mountain stream, Mallory boldly stripped naked. And when asked why he wanted to climb Mount Everest, Mallory famously replied, "Because it is there." On June 8, 1924, Mallory started for the summit, taking with him a young expert in charge of new oxygen rigs that could make the final ascent possible. Andrew Irving, a 22-year-old student and climber. Far below, a member of their team watches anxiously. Just 500 feet from the summit, Mallory and Irving climb into the mist. And then, they disappear. Mountaineers, including Everest hero Sir Edmund Hillary, have wondered ever since, did George Mallory summit first? Now, mountaineering's greatest mystery is about to be cracked wide open by this man. Eric Simonson, high-altitude climber and mountain guide extraordinaire.
Ooh, baby!
And a man on a mission.
I would characterize my interest in Mount Everest not as an obsession, but as being enamored with the human history. And for me, this is very much a human story.
The mystery of Mallory has haunted Eric and the world for decades. Eric is determined to solve it. For him, it's personal.
I think Mallory could have made it. I know personally, having tried 3 times to reach the summit of Mount Everest, how determined I was on that 3rd attempt. Nothing was going to stop me. I knew I was going to reach the summit, and I went into that climb willing to take risks that I would not have taken otherwise.
I put the key landmarks on the piece of paper, kind of sketch it out.
Like a detective on a case, Eric organizes a major expedition to Mount Everest to discover the truth about Mallory's fate.
Certainly, if I was George Mallory and I was lying there, having reached the summit, I would have wanted the world to know that I had been successful, that my death was not a total waste.
Oh, no, it is. Keep it back in. Hey, namaste.
From base camp, 17,000 feet up the mountain, Eric directs his 5-man team of climber investigators, headed by Dave Hahn. A high-altitude veteran, Dave's a no-nonsense guy who's initially skeptical about Summit's claims for Mallory and Irving.
When we started, I thought, well, how could they have made it? He was a school teacher climbing on his vacations, George Mallory. I'm a professional climber. I climb and I guide almost every day of the year and spend my days in the mountains. How could they have been better than us? I discovered ample evidence that they were stronger, more bold, gifted. I'd sure like to find that they made it. That'd mean a lot to me.
Dave's not alone in his admiration for Mallory and Irving. He's joined by Andy Collett.
She's out there, Dave.
An experienced climber and mountain guide. Andy's passion is the search. He loves to be out on the slopes, however high, looking for evidence.
My mind is entirely focused on this search.
For his high-altitude forensic team, Eric also recruits Tap Richards. Tap's climbing expertise is equaled by his eagerness to find proof of what happened to Mallory and Irving.
I think that, it's not out of the question at all that they knocked off those last 1,000 feet.
But those last 1,000 feet are in the death zone, as dangerous to the investigators today as it was to Mallory and Irving. Once you climb into it, the clock is ticking. Every second is killing you.
It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable climb into this place.
Above 25,000 feet in the death zone, as folks call it, your body's deteriorating.
If they were to step directly into the death zone from sea level, they would survive only moments before being overtaken by unconsciousness, coma, and death. So the investigators take weeks to get acclimatized through a series of staged ascents, an often agonizing process.
You come to a new altitude, you feel awful. It hurts to bend over and tie your shoes or pick up a rock or anything like that.
Oh, mamma mia.
You go lower and get some rest, come back up. Now it just plain feels bad, but doesn't feel awful. And you go on to a new altitude and repeat the process.
Identify the priority areas to hit on the way up, and think about how you're going to do that on a day that you're climbing from Camp 5. Having gone a different way to that point, rendezvous, maybe go off in a different
While his climbers prep, Eric studies eyewitness accounts and reports of bodies spotted on the mountain. Then he pinpoints a search area on Everest's north face. There, Conrad Anker, Jake Norton, Andy Politz, Tap Richards, and Dave Hahn begin their search for the remains of Mallory and Irving. The team unhooks from the guide ropes and fans out. Painstakingly, they comb the mountainside for evidence. On the very first day of their search, as they reach 26,760 feet, they come upon a body. Thanks to Everest's perpetually freezing climate, it's remarkably well preserved.
His skin was bleach white and almost like a marble color, which was, just really dramatic against this very dark landscape of Everest.
The body's layers of torn woolen clothing appear to date to the 1920s. At first they believe they found Andrew Irving, but then they inspect the tags inside the clothing, and the moment turns historic.
This is George Mallory. Really?
George Mallory.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I don't think I could have been ready for it. It still gives me goosebumps to remember that moment. Brushing up against history.
This astounding footage taken by Dave Hahn reveals Mallory's broken right leg and bruised torso. Closer examination shows evidence of a potentially fatal head wound.
Also a black and blue. It's still in the skin.
Clearly, Mallory suffered a tragic fall. But on his way up to the summit, or on the way down? The left leg is crossed over the shattered right in an apparent effort to protect it. So investigators believe that Mallory was still alive when he came to rest. Even more significant, Mallory's body faces uphill, and his hands dig into the mountain, suggesting that he was not only alive, but trying to arrest his own fall. On the basis of this initial evidence, the team believes that George Mallory died here and was frozen in place for decades. The investigators carefully examine the body, photograph the death scene, recover artifacts, and with permission from the Mallory family, take tissue samples for forensic DNA testing to prove beyond a doubt that this is George Mallory. Then they bury the fallen climber. But instead of solving the mystery, what they find, and fail to find, only deepens it. One enticing clue not found on the body, a photograph of his wife that Mallory planned to leave on the mountaintop as proof of his achievement. Mallory's own flag, the British Union Jack, is also missing. Is this evidence on the summit of Mount Everest? Proof positive might reside in another artifact that the team doesn't locate. Mallory took a camera on his ascent.
If you found a camera and developed some of the film from June 8, 1924, maybe there'd be a summit shot in there, and then you'd know.
The team begins to speculate. What other keys to solving the mystery might still be hidden even higher on Mount Everest? They want to keep searching, but storms force Eric to bring the investigation to an end. For now. After they leave, Everest claims the lives of 3 more climbers. It's a reminder that their high-altitude investigation is perilous, and the danger is about to rise in a completely unexpected way.
Wednesday on Naked
Sneering detectives scales Mount Everest to conduct a high-altitude forensic investigation. Their case, Mount Everest's greatest mystery. Did maverick British climber George Mallory summit first in 1924? Risking their lives to search in Everest's death zone, the investigators make an amazing discovery.
Really? See that?
The frozen body of George Mallory.
Oh my God!
Their find makes instant headlines around the world. The team descends with tissue samples